as well. We'll go to Yerevan in a moment. It's a Friday night, so here on tonight's show we're also talking racing. There's a pretty seismic rugby match on where Johan van Grand's legacy is up on the line in Ravenhill. Fiona Hayes is going to join us this hour to preview that. Then Paul Murphy talking Kilkenny against Galway. But first, Gavin Cooney is in Yerevan for the 42. Gavin, the sun is shining. Everybody's talking about the weather because we're Irish. Is it really that nice?
It is very, very nice, yeah. I'm afraid your correspondent here is kind of wilting in the heat, so I don't know how the players will cope tomorrow. Yeah, no, it's really hot. I think it's 32 degrees here today. It's going to be similar enough tomorrow. Kick-off is at 5 o'clock local time, which is the precise time I'm talking to you now. So, yeah, all the conversation around it is about the weather, and we'll see whether there's a little bit of... it's a little bit unknown as to whether they'll get a drinks break during the game. I think if the mercury hits 32 degrees, they have to get one, otherwise at the referee's discretion. So, yeah, they will. There's very real reason to be looking at the temperature tomorrow night. We
do have a national anxiety about the weather. It seems to be the one social glue that we have that makes us all be able to speak to each other. Do we maybe talk a little bit too much about this? These are well-honed professional athletes at the peak of their physical powers. Is it that big a deal?
I mean, there's not a whole lot else to talk about, is there, Ger? No. I mean, it will be relevant, but in fairness, as Stephen Kenny was saying, that at least it's not like a 7:45. Sorry, at least it's not a 3 o'clock kickoff. Obviously, the ideal would have been 7:45. But in fairness, like, it does matter in the sense that Kenny has talked about. They will have to modify part of how they want to play. I mean, they won't be able to press with that same intensity that we've seen in the November nights in Luxembourg or in the October nights in the Aviva. So, it does sound like they will have to modify how they play a little bit, and if there's an element that is forcing you to modify how to play, I think it's a legitimate talking point.
Okay, fair enough. And does that then feed into team selection? Are there players who are fitter, who have played less, who are better rested? Is that something that maybe we underestimate in his thinking when it comes to actually naming the team tomorrow?
I think the whole plan going into this is to eliminate those factors as much as you could, so to be able to pick the best team for the game. It's very strange that the players are coming in with such varying degrees of rest. Seamus Coleman and Nathan Collins were in a week after Premier League season ended. There are 4 or 5 players from League One who came in and their seasons ended on April 30th. So everyone was given their own individual training plan with GPS trackers that was all fed back to whatever mainframe computer they're running at Abbottstown, and it's presumably still running off Windows 98 or something. But yeah, so I mean that it may well play into team selection. And the other issue is that there are a couple of players who are nursing slight injuries. Now, Stephen Kenny will say that all 27 players are fit and available, which is obviously true. Gavin Bazunu had a bit of a back injury, but he seems to be fine, and he's out there warming up with the rest of the goalkeepers as we're talking now. But the likes of Seamus Coleman, Enda Stevens and James McLean all had little niggles at the end of the season that they had to manage this week, but all seem to be fit and firing.
Do you have an idea what the team is? Do you think there's room for us to be surprised when the team gets named?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the bedrock of the success of across the last few games has been consistency of formation and of selection. It seems unlikely that any of the new faces, and we'll include Michael Obafemi in there, will start tomorrow night. Probably see them off the bench. So I'd imagine it'll be pretty similar. I mean, Kenny wasn't planning to have Josh Cullen available, but turns out he is, thanks to administrative error at FIFA that went in our favour for once. So he'll probably start. I mean, that probably is bad news for Conor Harrahan, who probably would have come into the team otherwise. But I can't see too many surprises beyond the team that we've seen so far. One of the bigger questions is what happens at right wing back in Matt Doherty's absence. Does Seamus Coleman go there, or does he tuck in at right sided centre back as we've seen so far, and maybe Cyrus Christie coming at right wing back? I think the signs seem to be pointing toward Coleman playing down the wing, and he's very insistent today that he's fit and firing, and he's able to play in all these games. So that's probably one of the elements of the team selection to look out for.
Okay, so if Coleman plays right wing back, that opens up the gap then for either Nathan Collins or Darragh O'Shea, for Darragh O'Shea to retake the position that he held until his injury. However, you'd have to say Nathan Collins has catapulted himself way ahead of Darragh O'Shea at club level. So what does the manager do in that instance?
Oh, I'd be surprised if it wasn't Collins. Even like Collins has played more regularly and better at a higher level this season. And there's also the fact that Collins generally plays on the right of that back three, which would suit if Coleman goes to the right wing back. Darragh O'Shea's traditionally played on the left of that back three, and that's John Egan's position. You'd imagine that Shane Duffy will start, despite the fact that he hasn't played a single minute of football since the Belgium game, which was that was at the end of March. He was brought in early again into the Irish camp, and he played a full 60 minutes of a training game against the Irish under-21s last weekend at Abbottstown just to get fit, where all the other players only played 30 minutes. So you'd imagine that they're bringing him in early to get him as much fitness, to raise fitness as much as he can, get as much match sharpness as he can. Because you'd imagine that he will start at centre back, because he probably remains one of our, if not our most potent attacking weapon.
Nathan Collins in the team is genuinely exciting, because like the ceiling for him is, we don't know. He's had an excellent season, and there's a really good chance hopefully that he gets a move. Maybe season under Vincent Kompany might be interesting for him. We'll see. What else is in the team? Who's our left wing back? Who's our goalkeeper? Who are the midfield three? Because there's a little bit of room for doubt that maybe Caoimhín Kelleher might get in. Is there?
Yeah, Kenny was being very circumspect when he was asked about it. I did kind of think that, is he leaving the door open for Travers or probably Kelleher? But no, I think the consensus opinion is that I'm wrong, and that Bazunu will start, and he does seem to be fit and fully training out there. So it seems to be a case that Kenny declined to answer the question when asked if Bazunu still is number one, just because he wanted to have a conversation with the other two goalkeepers. And he does have a job in a sense to keep them happy and content, because both have legitimate claims to be Irish number one, and in any other era it probably would be number one. But you imagine it will be Bazunu. Left back is a coin toss between Enda Stevens and James McLean. Stevens might just edge it because he's played more games in recent weeks. Both have come in and recovered from injuries. Cullen will come straight into midfield with Hendrick, and then that leaves the other, there is a little bit of question mark about that other midfielder, Jason. I mean, my guess would be Jason Knight might get the nod. He didn't massively impress from the start against Belgium in March, having done so well off the bench in Luxembourg in November, but he brings that fitness and that energy. So probably him, although there is a case to be made for Alan Brown, who's has had that significant goal scoring impact for Ireland when he has been fit and available to play. He's missed a lot of games, but obviously scored away to Serbia, scored the equaliser against Belgium. So he might be in contention. I can't really see Jason Malumbi coming into contention for that position. Howran's another, but I think Kenny often likes him to play him deeper as an alternative to Hendrick and Cullen. So I'd be guessing Hendrick, Cullen, and then Jason Knight.
Okay, I mean there are options there to change things in the middle of the game if he needs to change things in the middle of the game, which fingers crossed he won't. But all of a sudden, a lot of those players have played in this team, in this formation, got a lot of game time. We know what they're capable of. There's a clear hierarchy there, but there is at least some depth around the squad this time that we haven't necessarily had at the start of previous campaigns.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a 27-man squad. Kenny has hinted that he will use all the 5 subs available to him tomorrow night, and you can just see what he has done. And it was partly through absurd circumstance through COVID. He has had to blood a lot of players. Neil Reardon had the stat at the press conference today. I think he started 24 players across the 8 World Cup qualifiers. The aim is to have obviously a more consistent selection from here on in. But there is genuine depth there, and Hamilton and Ebisele have been brought in to add depth to the forward positions. I mean, Ebisele's played at fullback for Derby, but he's very much an attacker in Kenny's eyes.
So the forward options again. Before we get into that, the use of the 5 subs, because there's been criticism of his use of the subs in the past, and that sometimes they've seemed to happen quite late in the game when players don't really have the opportunity to influence them. And then that seemed to have changed a little bit as the campaign went on, and there has been an impact from some players off the bench as well. So have we seen him evolve as a manager over the last campaign, do you think?
Oh, completely. Compare the Irish team that finished that campaign in 2021 with the one that began the Nations League campaign in 2020. Everything has changed. The formation has changed. The style has changed. There has been a certain kind of compromising on principles. The one principle a manager should always have is the fact that he shouldn't have any principles. And he has changed it quite a bit. The Irish team play very differently. They play slightly more direct now. They're not, knocking it along into the channels all the time, but they do knock it along with the channels sometimes because they have Benny's pace and the counter-attack to exploit it. I'll not get lost in stats, but if you look at the passes per every Irish possession, so every time they have the ball, they used to average 5 passes in 2020, and that dropped to 4 in 2021, which is sounds like a small difference, but when you add it all up by game and campaign by campaign, that amounts to a pretty seismic change in approach. So things have changed completely. You know, I mean, whereas once like Aaron Connolly was Kenny invested so much faith and time in Aaron Connolly, and he's out of the picture now because he's unearthed Bennett, who's given him pace in attacking areas that he needed. Connolly wasn't doing the business, and then Kenny, in a very Kenny style, unearthed kind of this almost unknown player who had plied his trade primarily in the League of Ireland, and he's making a huge impact at international level. So everything has changed. I just think what's going to be interesting now is the fact that there was an element of Ireland could take teams by surprise last year. I mean, they now have they're very committed to the same system of play. So it'll be interesting to see how they figure out, when teams know what to expect from them, how will they figure out that challenge? And I think, tomorrow night in Yerevan is one such example.
So then, presumably, we know who the front two are. Callum Robinson is going to start every game, and Chedoze Bene is undroppable at the moment.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to see otherwise. You might argue that Ogbene may not be the best suited to a team who'll sit in a low block, as Armenia might well do tomorrow night. But I just think such is his goal scoring form, and there will be opportunities to counter. Kenny has said that he's not expecting Armenia to sit in to the extent that, say, Azerbaijan did at home in September last year. So there should be opportunities for him to use that pace and exploit a bit of some of the space that'll appear on that pitch tomorrow evening. So you'd imagine it will be Robinson and Ogbene.
How good are our opponents? What should we expect from them? What kind of a team are they likely? What threat? Is this a big deal for them? Are they looking at this as a big opportunity the same way we are at the moment? Or are they just trying to cycle through the Nations League in the style of, say, Martin O'Neill Ireland?
They're using a very Irish characteristic, Ger, in the sense that they've spent the build-up to this game polishing their grievance. If you turn your mind back to Euro 2012 qualifying, Ireland beat Armenia in the final game to nudge ahead of them into second spot. That was the great Armenian team when Mkhitaryan at the peak of his powers. They got to top 40 in FIFA rankings, and their goalkeeper was sent off pretty harshly when he charged out of the box. He put his hands up, which is kind of foolish, but the ball did hit him on his ribs, and he was sent off. So they're still polishing that grievance. The very first question to Kenny and Coleman in the press conference today was, "What are your memories of that?" So I mean, maybe there's an element of revenge about this game against Ireland tomorrow night. Kenny would use the phrase they're up and down. They very much are up and down. They lost their last game 9-0 to Norway. Okay, they had a man sent off during it. But they promoted from League C in the Nations League. They topped a group with North Macedonia, who we saw beat Italy in the World Cup qualifiers. And Georgia were there as well. We don't need to talk about Georgia anymore. So they have some quality. I mean, one of their strikers, his name escapes me now, plays with Club Brugge in Belgium. One of their midfielders, again, whose name escapes me, was Player of the Year. He's only 21, Player of the Year at his club at Krasnodar in Russia. So not exactly household names. They're the names that, and Adamayan is the striker from Club Brugge, they're the names that the Kenny's picked out. But Stephen Kenny has targeted winning this group. If Ireland are going to win this group, they have to win tomorrow night.
Yeah. It has 1-1 written all over it, though, right?
Oh God, I can't write about another 1-1 draw. I mean, there's been nothing cold. Obviously, it's pretty hot here. There's been nothing colder than Ireland's embrace the Nations League. We've yet to win a game over 2 campaigns. There's only 5 other nations are like that. We've only scored 2 goals across the whole 10 games across 2 campaigns, which is, I think, only San Marino have managed fewer. So we're overdue a win, shall we say? But again, it'll be interesting to see if Armenia do sit down. Can Ireland break them down, and can Ireland continue to unfurl a couple of surprises? Because the more successful you are in the same system, the fewer opportunities you have to surprise your opponents.
Last thing is the general sense around Yerevan. There was obviously the security detail had to go out early to make sure everything was okay from the FAI's perspective. Is there any sense of that when you've been walking around or since you arrived?
No, all has been pretty calm. Those protests were a couple of weeks ago. They were never. They had protests here as part of the Federal Revolution in 2018, where there was civil disobedience and they blocked roads, etc., and kind of ground the city to the halt. Nothing like that. Nothing like that so far during our stay. There was some flashpoints about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, but no, nothing so far. All is calm and peaceful as is, anyway.
All right, we'll leave it there. Gav, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's Gavin Cooney of the 42 giving us some thoughts on what that Republic of Ireland team is going to look like that takes the field tomorrow in what is the start of a big campaign from Stephen Kenny's perspective. That was definitely one of the things that was a bit of a rod for his back when he said he thought we could target and potentially win this group. But look, I suppose that's the whole point about being ambitious, and that was the whole point of actually asking for a manager to say that this is a team who we believe in and these are players who we believe in. So let's see the evidence of it tomorrow. Of course, all the football on Off the Ball is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.